Hi Gail, thanks for taking the time to talk to us today. Just to start us off, could you tell us a little bit about Carers Trust and the work that you do?
So I'm Gail Scott-Spicer, I'm the Chief Executive of the Carers Trust, and we provide support to carers directly through 150 local charities around the whole of the UK, directly locally supporting carers through advice and information and providing sort of carers groups and things as well, but also nationally we really champion the voice of carers to government and to other opinion formers.
And how important are carers to the well-being of the people that they look after?
Carers are really important to the people that they support and look after because actually those people wouldn't be able to cope without them. They're a vital resource. And so anybody who's perhaps disabled or become ill, they might have addiction issues, all these sorts of people actually have someone around them quite often who's supporting them, and that's a carer.
And given what you've said there and the work that they do you think carers feel as valued as they should?
Carers often do not feel very valued at all. They often feel quite invisible. Many carers are really happy to care, but actually they need that sort of support to be able to carry on doing it. And so that's a really important thing that we're able to provide here at Carers Trust.
In some cases, carers are spending 24 hours a day, 365 days a year with the person they look after. So they've got a huge insight into that person's needs and well-being. Do you think that's an insight that's considered enough and recognised and respected by healthcare professionals in particular?
I think it's really important that carers' kind of voices and opinions are heard and are sought out. If you like, they should almost be partners in the kind of care of the person that they're supporting and caring for. And it's really patchy. In some places, health and social care professionals do that. And in other places, it's really hard for a carer to find themselves being heard and listened to. We do lots of work, of course, with carers, but also with professionals. For example, if you look at mental health, we have at Carers Trust a kind of a programme, if you like, called Triangle of Care, which is about really supporting carers and professionals in mental health trusts to kind of work together for their collective benefit and ultimately, of course, for the benefit of the cared for person and the carer.
So is that the ultimate outcome of that really is that it can result in much better care for the carer, but also for the person that they look after and actually improve their well-being?
Yeah, it's really important, of course, for both of those people, and quite often there's more than one person providing sort of care and support as well. So that's really important. It's also really important that the carer in themselves is listened to and recognised and supported themselves, because of course they'll put the other person first, and so their own health and well-being quite often suffers because they're thinking much more and putting the other person first that they're caring for. So that kind of dialogue with professionals is really important because sometimes their own needs aren't being met, and that sort of dialogue can identify that.
And as you've touched on it there, some of the carers that we've spoken to have been very frank about putting their own health and well-being second in the face of the person they look after. What can be done to put that right?
Well, I think it's really important that the carers themselves kind of identify as carers. Sometimes they don't like that word, and that's fine, but I think acknowledging that they're not just a daughter or a husband, but actually they're providing support and they're providing care for somebody. And I think if people actually start to think about themselves in that mindset, then that's a really important first step, is that kind of self-identification, if you like. And then it's really important that the professionals around them, whether it's GPs, pharmacists, people in hospitals, and of course for young carers, schools as well, that all of the professionals in all these places kind of reach out and identify them and help them to not only understand that they're a carer, but there's support for them. Whether it's through their local authority or through charities like Carers Trust. There's a lot of support out there for carers, and it's really vital that they know about that and that they're able to reach out for it.
Is there anything in particular that you've found has helped carers to identify themselves, has helped them to come forwards?
I think there can be a bit of a stigma around caring, and so the more that we talk about it, and of course in situations like this, being able to talk and sort of raise the profile of carers and their needs for themselves, not just for the person that they're caring for, is really vital. And there's lots of programmes all around the country trying to do things, and some very successful things, as I mentioned earlier, like working with pharmacists, for example, places where people might go quite regularly to pick up medicine or to go to the GPs. There's some great work going on, but there's also lots more to do.
Carers might learn to become sort of informal healthcare experts, but it's a hell of a learning curve, isn't it, becoming a carer? What are the biggest challenges they face?
I think it can be a huge learning curve for carers. I think particularly if it's a sudden situation where somebody has been well, hasn't needed support, and suddenly they do, through maybe an accident or a sudden illness like a stroke or a heart attack, for example. So it is, in that situation, we can all see it's a huge learning curve. I think what's really important, though, is that the system in its entirety, charities like Carers Trust, local authorities, anybody else involved in supporting those people, help them in that suddenly they don't feel like they've got to navigate this really complex system that they've never understood, never had access to before. So that's where support for them is really important, support for carers to help them kind of navigate that system, if you like.
And is there any particular kind of support that you find that carers need most immediately or value the most?
I think every carer is different in their support. Of course, everybody is unique. And so it's really important that whatever support there is available for carers is very flexible around their own needs.
You've touched on carers feeling isolated and alone. And I know that from the carers that we've spoken to, a lot of them have taken real comfort from the experience of other carers when they've been able to connect with them. Why is it so important, do you think, that they are able to connect with people that have been through the same things that they have?
I think being a carer can be very isolating. We hear that a lot. For those who are caring sort of in the most intense way, if you like, they're quite often in a home, practically 24/7, probably with just that one individual. And it's a very intense and isolating and lonely experience and very stressful and a lot of pressure. So I think there's something just about feeling that there are other people like you who are going through it, and actually, hopefully through talking to those people, you can see that there's some hope and there may be support that they can access that they didn't realise was out there. Also, I think just learning from each other. So if a carer sort of talks to somebody else for the first time and says, this is the situation I'm in at home, I don't know how to cope, I'm not getting enough sleep, how do I cope with somebody's deteriorating dementia, say, and somebody else says, well, actually, I was supporting my mum or dad who had dementia and I can relate to what you're talking about. And these are some really practical things that I found that helped. That in itself is going to be, and we hear all the time, is a big relief for people, and it's a very practical kind of piece of support, if you like.
So with a sort of globally ageing population and the strain that that's putting on healthcare systems all around the world, are we going to become more dependent than ever on carers?
I think it's very clear that there's an ageing population, and I think for carers that presents a big problem, because actually we will get to a point in not very distant future as a population where there are not enough carers to support the people who need that support. And I think as a society, that's a huge challenge, and I think at the moment it's one that's just frankly not being addressed.
So given what you've said there about that significant need that's coming, well, it's already there now, but will increase, and that in all likelihood, everyone in this room, everyone in the world at some point will be or need an informal carer. Is it something that we need to be talking about more and raising more awareness of?
We definitely do need to talk more about caring and carers and help people to feel no stigma and feel that there's opportunities to reach out and just have conversations with people. I think the statistics show us that 3 in 5 of us are going to be carers at some point in our lives. So actually, as you say, most people are going to become a carer. And when you start talking to people, people kind of realise, actually, oh, you're talking about my next door neighbour or somebody in my family who supports somebody. So I think having these conversations is so important in terms of just raising awareness for carers, but also that carers have their own rights and they need to be supported in themselves to have their own lives. And actually there's a cost to the system if they're not supported, because then people who they're cared for become kind of emergency cases, if you like, turning up at A&E in the NHS and drawing down more resource. So there's a lot of logic in having conversations and understanding the importance of supporting carers.
Just to finish, generally, how do you think carers feel about themselves?
I think carers generally that I speak to are really happy to care and are so proud of the fact that they can care and support the person that they love in their lives. That quite often, though, is balanced with a situation where they struggle. You know, they're stressed, they're worried. Quite often their situation at home deteriorates, relationships deteriorate. Their situation, if they're working or they're seeking work or they're studying, deteriorates. So it's a very kind of two sides of a coin, I think, for most carers who, as I say, the positive, when you talk to them, they kind of positively glow about the fact that they're really helping someone that they love. And then they start thinking about the effect and how that's changed their lives. And they are perhaps not the person that they were before they had those responsibilities. So it's a real mix, and I think it's really important, therefore, that people understand that complexity, and that charities like Carers Trust and other places that can support carers are enabled to do so, and that we're able to provide support for carers to work through that flip side.
Gail, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.